Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 78 of the Playoff Push Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and today I'm joined for a very special interview for you guys. Ahman Green, former NFL running back. How we doing?
Man, I'm doing good. How you doing, Jack?
It's great to talk to you. I'm doing great today. Just got out of the gym, getting ready
Nice.
for this show. Episode 78. One of my best friends is a diehard Packer fan, so this show is going to be very fun to me.
Good, good. We gotta give him all the Packer love he can get and enjoy it. And because I know, like I mentioned, Packer fans don't know no other way but to be diehard Packer fans. So I know he is. Is he from
Absolutely.
Wisconsin? Is he from
No,
Wisconsin?
actually, but
Okay.
his family is. He's from here in Pennsylvania, but his family's
Okay.
all from the Green Bay area.
Oh, there you go. I might have run into him or walked past him, through the last 30 years because I lived there for 25 years before we moved
Sheesh.
out. We're in Houston now, so we moved
There
we
we
moved
go.
out 2 years ago. So
Hey,
we
you were
might
in
have ran
Houston for a
across
bit
paths.
too.
Yeah, I was there for 2 years. That's part of the reason we're here because we like the weather. Um, and all our friends and family members are back up north in between Nebraska, Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, trust me, I go to Penn State, so a rival Big Ten school, but it's still
Yep.
very cold up here. It's very nice every time I get to go down south and just get to embrace it for a bit.
Exactly. That's the whole reason we are in Houston because I paid my dues on the cold weather. Like I could manage it. I played in it. I worked in it. So and lived in it. So it's just now like I think I'm gonna get. I'll come visit. I'll just come visit.
Every once in a while.
Exactly.
So I
No.
mentioned, you going to Nebraska. That's
Hmm.
a crazy Big Ten school, actually having a very good basketball run right
Very
now.
good. Yes, they
So
are.
very impressed with that first off. But you're one of the rare cases where, you're born, raised, and you star in the same state that you go all the way up through from high school in Nebraska to winning national titles with the
Hmm.
Cornhuskers. How did growing up in Nebraska, not necessarily known as an athletic state, shape your mentality as a player?
Uh, it was uh it was just something that we like once you got to the high school level. So the quick uh I say detour. So when I was born in Nebraska, but then grew up in Los Angeles, California. And so that's where I started playing ball. And so really growing up, I didn't really watch a ton of Nebraska other than when they played Oklahoma or Colorado on
Hmm.
TV. So the big games. I didn't see every game. So I wasn't quite I was a fan because I knew, I was born there. But getting used to UCLA, USC, the Raiders, the Rams, the Lakers, the Clippers, right? And so when we moved back to when I was in high school, moved back, now that freshman year was kind of the start of me getting, falling back in love, knowing the Huskers through and through, watching them play every Saturday or Friday game. And then I learned that right away, okay, if I want to have a chance to go college, football or even track or any sport that matter, Nebraska will probably be the no-brainer because I'm right here in the state. Now I just got to work hard. I got to have good grades and stay out of trouble, things of that nature. So that's where I kind of programmed myself my freshman year. And it was crazy. I was just talking about this to some friends of mine. My first recruiting lever was from North Carolina for track
Hmm.
my sophomore year. So it was kind of early. It was super early, So, but then junior year came around. As soon as that ended, that's when I started getting a lot of letters from Nebraska, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Miami. Just a ton of schools because I had did my part of the deal. I stayed out of trouble. I had a three above a 3.5 GPA, and I was a phenomenal athlete. I played football, I ran track, I played a little baseball. I know you're a baseball lover.
Oh yeah.
I was an outfielder. I loved it, and I was actually trying to go pro in both. And actually, I got an opportunity, just didn't miss it, just didn't timed out right where I had an opportunity to go work out for the Royals when I was like
Wow.
15. When I was 15, and so we just didn't get the chance. Me and my dad didn't get a chance to drive down to Kansas City for that workout. But who knows? If I would have got, I'm a lefty, and Ken Griffey was my favorite player, still is today. Hopefully, we get to meet one day. And so, yeah, I had that ability, but then knowing that it's going to take, regardless if I'm from the state, I still had to bust my butt. I knew I had to work hard. I had to earn it. They just wasn't going to just give me a scholarship. So I made sure that by, like I said, doing my job, making sure good grades. I was all state in football, all state in track, and all state in powerlifting as well. So doing those three things is what helped me get to understand, like, okay, if I'm gonna be at Nebraska, and then obviously my senior year, they win a national title. So I'm like, okay, I better make sure that not only I have the ability, which I know I do, but now I got to get mentally ready to play with the champions, right? These guys, Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips, Christian Peter, Grant Williams, these guys just won. So I got to go out. I got to come on there as a young boy, young kid, and be like, all right, look, how can I help? I'm not going to be the starter, day one because they had Lawrence Phillips and Clinton Childs and Damon Benning, but I knew I could help out in any sort of way, and that's how I told my so it was a Frank Solis, my running back coach. I said, "Hey, I'll play special teams. I'll do anything. So I was kickoff return. So I was like, bet, there we go. At least I get something, to get the ball rolling. And once I got to Nebraska,
Yeah, you mentioned that crazy versatility you had athletically with, the high school All-American, the state player of the year. I believe you ran a 10.61 in the 100 meter, if I'm
yep,
correct on that.
yeah, to win state. Yep, to win state. I ran a
Second
10.6.
nationally in powerlifting. Like the versatility was off the charts. So
Yeah,
you had that elite speed and that strength combo. And then you head into your freshman year, and I think you're kind of like doubting your ability during that freshman year because you still balled out with the school's freshman
yeah.
record, 206 yards in the Orange Bowl in 98. What was your breakthrough moment that you think early on in your career at Nebraska?
I would just say it was the Washington State game. What's funny was I had played in every game my freshman year, and then obviously became a starter later in the year when Lawrence Phillips got suspended, and then some guys got hurt. But I was playing regardless. And so the good thing was that I figured out for me and what was a problem for the other teams was I got comfortable because I started to get used to the game. Like I would get in the game, we were blowing people out. It was garbage time. So I would pick up 100 yards in like 10 plays and then score a touchdown in garbage time. So I'm like, I'm getting comfortable. I'm learning the playbook. I'm getting comfortable with Tommy Frazier. He's a leader. I'm listening. I just pretty much told myself, and he told me too, boy, you better listen to me. I'm gonna tell you where you need to go. I'm like, all right, Tommy, you got it, sir. So I just listened to my leaders in front of me, and Lawrence too. He taught me things about reading the defenses and studying different coverages and studying different linebackers, the player, not just the defense, and learn how they play, so you can learn how to counter what they do. So I had the guys in front of me helping me out, and I was new on the block. So that right there was a I say big help for me because once I got comfortable, then it was just like, you know what, just go play football. I've been playing football since I was 6, 5 years old. So let's go have fun. And I was able to do that with a whole bunch of good big guys, offensive linemen, defensive line. Our black shirt defense was amazing at that time. They made our job hard in practice to move the ball 10 inches. So that's why we played better on Saturday against every other team that year and the other years after that.
Yeah, Frazier, one of the most iconic quarterbacks in the history of college football. Can you dive a little bit more into him?
Oh man, he was a leader. Like he was if you want a quarterback to lead your team, not just offensively, but to lead your team in general, at that but he did it. And it probably comes from the fact that his dad was a football coach, and so he had been coached up as a kid. So it might have been one factor. And just his competitiveness. I remember watching him when I was a senior in high school, and he couldn't play most of the season his junior year, I think it was, and he had a blood clot in his leg.
Mm.
And when they finally got a chance to play was the national title game where they beat Miami, and he didn't miss a step. And so that right there was another thing. Like, man, I want to be on a team with him because he has not only the physical, he has the mental part of playing football and knowing that you got to go through injuries, you're gonna go through hell and high water. But when you get your opportunity, seize your opportunity. And so being behind him, I remember my first time in the huddle in a game with him. It was a couple people, him and Aaron Taylor. They were
Mm.
like, well, Aaron was like, "Hey, freshman, we gonna get the ball score right now." I'm like, "Yes, we are, Mr. Taylor." And then Tommy said, he said, "Ahman, you better stick with me. I'm not gonna pitch the ball if you're not there." I'm like, "No problem, I'm gonna be there." And I was there. So that right there was one, two, where they believed in me to do my job, and then I better go do my job. If I'm not there, I'm not gonna get the ball. Or if I don't score this touchdown, the offensive line might beat me up. I don't know. But it was just like, wow. I said, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's play ball. Let's go. And so those elements right there is what made things my transition from high school to the college level a lot easier.
And then by the time you hit your senior year, you had another quarterback, Scott Frost, who's now the
Hmm.
head coach at UCF. So with
Yeah.
him, did you ever think he was gonna be a head coach? Did he give off those vibes?
I didn't think no. I say truthfully no. But once you saw his direction, I remember right after we got out of Nebraska, he went to the Jets. I went to Seattle and then bounced, got traded over to the Packers. And then I remember we played my first year in Green Bay, and it was like weird. It was just seeing him as a defensive back. It was like, man. And then a few years went by, and I think he retired before I did. And then through the grapevine, I learned that he was jumping in the college ranks. I think he went to Northern Iowa first and was there for like 2, 3 years. Then went to another school. Then boom, he was at Oregon. And that's when I remember when I finished playing ball, and I was like, I want to coach too. And so I reached out to him a few times, and we were conversating. I was like, hey, I'll come in. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll intern first year, whatever. But I know I want to coach, and I know I can coach because I started coaching high school football. I coached my son. We made it to a 10-1 record.
Whew.
My first year coaching, he was an all-state running back, and I had two all-state running backs, him and another kid, my son and another kid, Derek, in the same backfield. And so I knew I could do it. And so never got the opportunity to coach with Scott, but to see him and his journey was awesome. Coaching a Heisman Trophy winner in Mariota, almost a national title at Oregon, and then now at UCF, he kind of got a national title that first year stint he was there, and then now he's back now. So just hats off to him, because a lot of hard work and a lot of ups and downs through his coaching career that he's had, but now he's in a good spot to know, like I said, to know that he was going to go into coaching while we're, us figuring ourselves out, working together as a option quarterback, option running back here. No, didn't think of that. But once we got out of the running of football, playing, being a player, then both of us went down that road. So,
I would say you've definitely had one of the most like crazy quarterback rooms in college of any college player ever
hmm
with Tommy and then Scott.
yep, yep. It was, I mean, it was, I say just good discipline, good work. I say one thing that I noticed the difference. I know my sophomore year, that was the biggest transition one was because both me and Scott were first time starters now.
Mm.
And then we started that season. We started off, I think, 1-0, 2, and then we went 2-0. Then we lost to Arizona State. And in that Arizona State game, that is the game where we both grew, as men because we lost and we hadn't had a loss in like 22 games or something like that. So we was a coach, or we were the two players that led the team that we just lost out of 25 games ago. And so now was coming out of that. And I remember the first thing that next week going into practice, I said to Scott, I said, hey, let's communicate a little bit more. Let's talk, through the play. Like, let me know when you're going to pitch it. Cause I knew like when Tommy, we didn't talk a whole lot. He kind of just told me everything. He said, just be there on my hip and I'll get you the ball. So that's what Tommy told me. So now it's like, all right, how is Scott going to option the ball? Is he, because he was double pumping sometimes and I wasn't sure if that ball was coming. So talking through that got us then to the next level of working together. It's like a quarterback to a wide receiver, reading the coverages, reading the defense. We had to be on the same page because if the ball wasn't pitched right, I'm gonna miss it, and it's not why I'm trying to miss it. It's just a mistake. So our communication got better right away. And I thought of that because I knew if we're going to be a part of another national title team, we got to communicate even, with the loss. So what? It's behind us now. We made the mistakes, but let's push forward. And we did. We went 11-0. And unfortunately, I broke my foot and then we lost. I mean, the next game we had like 20 guys that had the flu against Texas. I think they poisoned our food down there in the Alamo Dome. We lost to them for the first Big 12 championship, but that season and those two games set us up for the next year because then we had a mentality of, okay, we have unfinished business. We got things we got to do now to reprove ourselves out here on a college football platform.
Yeah, one of the most underrated parts I think of the running back position is the need to be aware of those pitches and those laterals and all those ideas because we know
Yeah.
what happens when a lateral goes wrong. We all remember Jacoby Myers throwing the ball directly into Chandler Jones's hands and he runs it back for
Yes.
a touchdown to lose the game for New England. Those things can go
Yes.
wrong really quick.
Oh man. So and then like between going wrong real quick, but then how you bounce back from that wrong, right? Like we could have like losing to Arizona State. I mean, we scored no points. We got beat 19-0. And it was off of a bad pitch in the end zone that I should have caught, but I missed it. and then me owning up to my mistakes. Regardless if it's pitched or not, I better catch it, and I didn't. Later on, I had a fumble. That's on me. Even though I ran into my offensive lineman, so what? I should have held on to the ball. So I think that right there was the biggest part of the turnaround between me, Scott, and the rest of the team. Because the rest of the team, you got to remember, I'm a true sophomore, and then Scott just transferred back from Stanford, so he wasn't a well-known guy on the team as a leader. And so we both had to speak up. We both had to own up to our mistakes and then get better throughout the season. And I think we did. And that's what helped us that season. And then in the 97 season to get back to the national title game to play against Tennessee and Peyton Manning.
Love it. I love hearing about the college tenures of players like yourself because it really shows how you transition from the college level to the
Hmm.
NFL level. We're going to head over there now. You
Yeah.
were very underused in your 2 years in Seattle before you headed over to Green Bay. And one of the most interesting things about your time in Green Bay is you were the featured back during the end tail of Brett Favre and
Hmm.
during the beginning area of Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm sure you've been asked about that transition a
Yeah.
ton of times, but the thing
Yeah.
was, you weren't necessarily there during the transition. You were in Houston, but you were there when Favre was ending and when Rodgers was starting, but not there during the actual handoff. Was
Correct.
there a sharp difference in those two Green Bay tenures based on what you saw after and before the transition?
No, there wasn't much difference because being in Green Bay, it was a machine, running through. It's kind of like when I was at Nebraska because we had fanatical fans, we got green and gold fans, and then Nebraska was red and white. That was the only difference between those two fan bases. So crazy fanatic fans that wanted to support us, and then the organizations were pretty much the same because Nebraska had been a program that had been winning for years. In the recent years, those three, two, three, had three national titles in 4 years. And then Green Bay, too. You're talking about the most Super Bowls won by a franchise in the NFL, and then a ton of Hall of Fame players that played for them. So now it was just like, all right, my first stint was obviously now I got the same thing like in Nebraska. You know what? I've been here before. These guys won a Super Bowl just a few years ago. They lost the last one. That's okay, against Broncos. But now I got to come show why I got traded here. And then year one, Dorsey was the starter. I backed him up, and then eventually got my opportunity through injury, which I still feel that I can't. I'm not going to be a starter because of injury. So up until Coach Sherman actually said, "Hey, Ahman Green is going to be our starter," that's when I, took the reins from there and got going. And but just being professional about it, because me and Dorsey, we basically were good, great friends on and off the field. Still are today. We had a podcast a few years ago. We're still trying to get going again. And so those two franchises, I'll say Nebraska, University of Nebraska and Green Bay were so similar. That's what made the transition for me, I say a lot easier. And then understanding what I need to do. And so that was play ball, learn the offense, learn the defense, pick up the blitz, learn all that stuff to help Brett out. That was my mindset. Help Brett out, because he wants to play as long as he wants to play. We didn't know when he was going to retire. And so it was just do my job. And then my second stint after went to Houston, came back. Now I'm kind of I'm long in the tooth. I'm a little older guy, not as fast as I was, but still was given leadership around the locker room. I remember when, between Aaron, Clay Matthews, and some of the other, Greg Jennings guys that were now younger, but grew because one, they were on the brink of something great, and I could see it. That '09 season, I came back when we lost to we got to the playoffs. We got first round against Arizona, and that was at a historic game of 56-52 or something the score was. And in that locker room, I already could feel what I felt back in Nebraska. There was nobody doubting themselves. It was nobody negatively saying anything about that game. What they were saying and doing, and their mannerisms, their body, you could tell like, oh, this is all it takes. Like we got this far, and we had players hurt. We made our mistakes. We could fix those, and we could be back here next year. So I knew that team was going to be the Super Bowl team next year because I was in that locker room. It was a vibe that was just like, wow. I could just see it. And I was like, man, I can't, hopefully I can re-sign with this team and be with this team next year. Because I was like, this is the team that's going to win the Super Bowl for the Packers in present time. And they did. They came back the next year. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the roster, but I knew it then that team was going to be the team winning another Super Bowl.
We're going to stick with that year before we jump back to your prime in Green Bay. But in '09, right around there, you passed Jim Taylor to become the all-time leading rusher in the history of the Green Bay Packers. Just let's go for what you felt in that moment when you figured it out. What did you feel knowing that you put your name in the history books like that?
Oh man, it felt great, man. What I felt was my dad, because he had a conversation. My dad was from New Orleans, and I remember him having me a conversation right before when I went free agent to Houston, and actually a couple years before that. And he's like, John, Jim Taylor was my guy because he went to LSU, and my dad was from New Orleans, so he's like, that was my childhood idol. Even though my dad was an offensive lineman, he played football too. But anyway, he liked Jim Taylor. And so I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. And so when I know it was getting to the record, I was like, man, I'm passing my dad's guy. And I know my dad is going to love this. Unfortunately, he had passed away a couple years before that, but I know he was watching down. And so it was just thinking about that moment, sharing it with my dad, him watching over the game, even though we lost the game to Tampa in Tampa. So what? I got my 48 yards or whatever it is. And I remember Coach McCarthy saying that in the conversation on the phone when I called him and my agent were talking about, getting me signed up and getting me on the roster for the '09 season. He said, "Ahman, we got to get you that record." And so with that, when he said that, I was like, "We gonna get it." I already knew it because I knew his mindset when was focused to get something done. He got something done at that time. So Coach McCarthy was a part of that reason why I got that, and another part was me going out there along with the offensive line that year and the previous long offensive lineman that I had that got us to that, along with Brett and the wide receivers that blocked downfield on my big runs and stuff like Donald and Robert Ferguson, Javon Walker, Bubba Franks, those guys. It just wasn't me running; it was them for blocking guys and then helping me out. So it was a team thing. But when it happened, I knew it was I get to have my name in the books, and I was just like just now just waiting to maybe pass the torch to the next person, if it's Josh, if it's anybody after him, but to be in the record books is something that I'm proud. It took me a while to be proud about it because I was always a team guy. So now I start my podcast with this is Ahman Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher. It took me years to get that far because I was always a team player. I wasn't about my stats. I was about the team stats, winning and losing, and what I need to do to help this team get better. So to have that happen and finally be like, you know what, I did earn this with a whole bunch of guys. It was a great feeling when I got that yardage at the end of the game. I knew I was going to keep the ball, and I remember Red Batty, our equipment manager at that time. He made sure I got my shoes and pants and jersey and helmet and everything for that game when we got back home and then when I was done playing ball as well.
There we go. That's what I love to hear.
Yeah.
And that record was a long time in the making, too. Back in your prime, let's say from 2000 to '04, you led the NFL in both yards from scrimmage and rushing yards. What did that stretch mean to you as a player? And when you look back on it, what was it about that time that really made you so dominant?
Uh, I say that time that made me so dominant, I had a focus that my brother told me that I had back in like I think high school, maybe college. He said when the season starts for you, you have this laser focus. Like you focus so hard that you don't really see anything else but your goals on the football field or in the classroom or whatever you're doing. And so I had that same mindset in Green Bay. And so the goal was to basically get 1,000 yards for a season, score one touchdown per game, um, catch three balls out of the backfield per game. If I could score a touchdown, I said bonus goals was get a receiving touchdown. Because I knew if I did those things, the defense is like, we got to deal with him and Brett and these receivers. Like, oh my God, we got a problem. And so those are my goals. Those are my personal two goals, the ones I just mentioned. So rush for 1,000 in the season, rush for 100 yards per game, and score one touchdown per game. So that was something I put in my head. I had on a piece of paper that I would read every day before the game starts and when I would wake up and go to bed. So that was my mindset. I was locked in for that. And that's why those years went the way they went because then on top of that, I'm locked in, and then all my offensive line are locked in. We communicated. We started having meetings together so we could learn the play from a inside point of view, the details of a block. Like, come on, we on this play, we saw you, I did this. Why'd you go that way? Well, I saw this helmet go that way. We were talking through the powers, the ISOs, the toss cracks, the 96 power counter and all that stuff. So talking through that was just like I mentioned earlier, the quarterback to the wide receiver. So now it's the offensive line to the running back and the fullback saying, hey, this is what we're thinking on this block. So if I do this, what you going to do here, Amon? I'm like, oh, I'm just bounce it outside and go get up the field. Oh, they're like, okay, cool. And so all that just meshed. And so over those years, we were just high octane, and we we were to a point where it didn't matter what defense was in front of us. We knew that we could pick up 5 yards real easy if it was the Buccaneers, even though they had Derrick Brooks and Warren Sapp and even Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs down in Chicago. It didn't matter. We knew we was going to pick up yardage regardless of what was in front of us.
And those goals clearly worked out. '03, I would say, was your best season, in my
Hmm.
opinion. 1,883 yards with 3 games of 218, 192, and 176. 20 touchdowns, 50 catches. So you have that rushing positivity. You have that
Hmm.
receiving to back it. How did you balance those two aspects? Because clearly in those goals, it shows that you really wanted to be both as a running back.
Yeah, I mean, I learned that being a fan. I grew up watching the 49ers, and so they had a Nebraska running back in the backfield that just got inducted to the NFL Hall of Fame, Roger Craig, who I watched. And so watching him, Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen, right, was like, this is what you got to do as an NFL running back. You got to not only run the ball and run people over, you got to catch the ball, you got to pick up the blitz. So that part of my mind, as soon as I got drafted, my mind flipped the switch to that because now I knew, okay, this is the type of back I got to be. I got to be dynamic and I got to be versatile because everybody thought I was just one pony show from Nebraska, being that we had a powerful offensive line and there's nobody to juke. I just got to run fast downfield. And it was like, okay, no. Sometimes I got to run people over. Sometimes I got to juke somebody. And you got to remember, I was catching an option pitch. So I'm catching it running laterally. So not only then are you forgetting that I caught a pitch laterally running full speed, I could then have to get my eyes upfield, tuck the ball, and then see if I'm a juke or run over the guy. So that's a lot of athletic ability that's going on all in one play, right? And then I played baseball on top of that. I played basketball, power lifted, I ran track. So I was an athlete, so I knew how to adapt and pivot. I think people forgot about that for me coming out of high school and college. And then once I got to Green Bay, I got able to display that, that I could catch the ball and then set up my blocks. I knew how to run certain routes because I read the coverage pre-snap. Okay, this looks like zone over here. All right, I'm gonna run this route. I think this is man. All right, I'm gonna run this route. So that's stuff that not only did I learned on my own, my teammates taught me stuff. I remember Leroy Butler in practice one day.
Mm.
I ran a route and he's like, he covered it and he picked it off and he told me right away, Amon, you gave up this. You told me you were doing this before you even pre-snapped the ball. And I was like, oh, he said, you were already looking there. Your body did this. And I already knew where the ball was going to be. So I just went to the spot. I didn't cover you. I just covered the spot. I'm like, thanks. So my teammates helping me out. So things like that, I would just take it in like a sponge and then used it in my game to continually get better on the football field.
Football's complicated, man. So
It
many like
is.
little things that you do can give it away to a defense or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was that. So stuff like that. I mean, and then I remember returning a favor years. Fast forward to 2009, and I remember talking. And I'm in practice with Clay, and he busted through the offensive line, got a in practice sack, which is just a tag off. And then he did it again the next play, and I watched him for a series. I watched what he was doing technique wise, and then finally he went in and got stoned. He got blocked in a few plays. He couldn't get in there. And then I said, I came to the side. He was getting him some water. I said, hey Clay, I said, hey, why don't you think about mixing it up just a little bit? Because he was just bull rushing, bull rushing, bull rushing, bull rushing. I said, I seen you do a spin move. I said, you got a nice spin move. if you bull rush one play, bring the spin move the next play, or bull rush off the spin move. Want to make it dynamic because you're gonna make the offensive line think too much. You want the offensive line thinking too much because they're worried. When you make an offensive line think and worry about stuff, they're gonna miss blocks. They're gonna set wrong trying to block you. And he's like, thanks. He said, all right, I'll try it out. And knowing his dad played in the NFL for 20 years still kind of just went past my mind. But I'm like, I could tell him something. I don't know. And he used it. And he did and he said thanks. He said, hey, old man, I appreciate it. I was like, no problem.
Old man.
Yeah, I was 33, at that time for football, it was old, and I was still going at it. But I saw something that I had dealt with before, right? Playing against somebody like Javon Curse is like, God damn, how are we gonna block this guy? All right, we got to do this. We got to adjust here. Yeah, cut block. Hopefully, I can get it off, but at least it slows him down. So I learned by playing against guys of his caliber to try to stop him to make sure he doesn't get to my quarterback because that was my next goal was don't let my quarterback get touched at all. And I think that 2003 season, I think that was the less sacks Brett had in his career. That he only got sacked 19 times that year, I believe. I think that was the
Wow.
record. Yeah, in the
Not bad at all.
in the 16 game season, he only got sacked 19 times in 2003.
Not bad at all. Gonna finish off this show just looking back at the overall aspect.
Mhm.
Inducted into the Nebraska Hall of Fame, inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame. So if a kid were to look you up on Pro Football Reference or Wikipedia, if they can only remember you by one word for your entire legacy, what would you want it to be?
Oh man, that's a good question. I like that question, Jack. Oh man. I would have to say if I want a kid to remember me, I want them to remember me by saying consistency
Mm.
because that's what takes to be great. Consistency is not about talent. It's about you understanding that for me to be great at something, whatever it is, making a cup of tea, being an NFL running back, being an NFL wide receiver quarterback, being an NBA point guard, it takes consistency. That's it. If you have the talent, that's just a multiplier, you know? That just adds to the ability of hard work. So if you're consistent, waking up, doing the same thing over and over and perfecting it to a point to where nobody does it better than you, and then you have the talent, that's where you see the Hall of Famers in football and baseball and basketball, in the Olympics, things of that nature. Those are the athletes that figured it out like I did. It's like, oh man, it's like once I got to a level of athletic ability, when I was in my prime, as we call it today, then I was like, I know I'm the best at this. And I'm gonna wear people out with it. One thing was physicality, right? I was physical. And I was like, I'm gonna beat you up just like a boxer. I said, if you're not ready to play me and be physical, you're gonna lose the fight. Then two, I'm fast. I have an ability that I worked in high school and I turned it into something special. But even then, as I got older, all right, I'm not fast no more. Now I got to be quick on my feet and think more. That's where the great running backs then went to the next level because you're not going to be fast your whole career. So you got to make sure you know the ins and outs of football. Another guy that I followed was Walter Payton, and he was
Mm.
that. He didn't have the speed, but he mastered physicality and he had mastered endurance. And so he never got tired. That's where he had, the thousands of yards of seasons that he had longer than me. And so that was one of my guys that I was shooting for to get his record. I was halfway there. I almost got there. I was about like 5,000 short, but not. If I would have had a couple more seasons, I think as a starter, I would have had an opportunity to get close. So just having that stuff, having that consistency. So if a kid could know and learn anything about what I done and other guys that they follow in sports, consistency will get you there, and consistency and discipline.
And so, Aman, what are you doing now after football?
Crazy as it is, I partner up with a neighbor of mine, Ken and Keith Newcomer. They're in the financial world, and I know it's a little different from my athletic background, but financial world is all pretty much actually has a good relation. So the company I'm a part of is called Emerging Due Diligence. You can find us on LinkedIn, and we're a small company now, but we're a company that helps bigger companies when they want to merge or acquire
Hmm.
another company. We help them with the due diligence to make sure that company is a good fit. So it's just like drafting a player, right? We got the combine this the weekend. And so all the coaches, all the GMs, all the owners, they're in Indianapolis watching the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, everybody run routes, make sure, they're doing job interviews to that player individually. So we're that to a business trying to buy another business. So if
Mm.
just hypothetically, if Apple wants to buy Nike, so we'll say to Apple, all right, let us check everything, like check under the hood, make sure their finances okay, make sure their budget's good, make sure behind the doors things are okay, running clean in the house. That means financially, that means leadership wise, and that means compliance. So are they complying for all the business rules that are out there for other companies to run by? Are they following those rules? Are they financially in a good position? Are they in debt
Mm.
or are they positive? And is their leadership good leadership? Are there guys and girls in the position that lead, that is the CEO of this company, abiding by the business rules? We'll find all that out before we say, hey, you know what? This company it's a no-brainer. You should partner with them or you should acquire them. Or we'll say, don't do it because they have this CEO that did this. They got this, they got court thing going on that you don't know about. And financially, they're in the red. They need help. So this is not a good merger. This is not a good acquisition. So where I come into it is all the leadership development that I gained through my football career. So
Mm.
me and being a player that I was a captain, I was a team leader. And so that's where once we acquire or once we get a deal, on Slate, we're working through one right now. I'll eventually get an opportunity to sit down with the CEOs and the heads of the departments of this company because then I'm gonna ask them questions to keep them accountable because the same thing on the football field with myself and my teammates, what we like I mentioned, we held ourselves accountable to our gameplay. When I messed up, I owned my mistake and I moved forward and I got ready for the next game. So that's how we were able to have those teams that I played on from the Packers and from the Nebraska teams. We held ourselves accountable. So if CEO of Nike doesn't want to hold himself accountable of him doing his job or her job, then you'll find out that company's not going to last long. But we know Nike's not that company. Nike has been doing that. They have great leadership um at the top and throughout because it starts at the top. And if you have good leadership at the top, it'll spread all the way through the different levels, even down to the bottom level where somebody is just the janitor. We know that janitor is going to do their job 100%. So that's where we come in as a company. So emerging due diligence, like you said, like I mentioned, we got a website, emergingduediligence.com. You can find us there and on LinkedIn.
Mm.
So if I don't know about yourself, Jack, I know you're a young guy. If you know anybody that owns a business and wants to buy another business, you know what?
Hey,
Have them I say direct them our way, basically, because we'll help with budgets, we'll help investors understand what they need to know before they buy a company, pretty much.
actually learning about mergers in my communications class right now, at least in the telecom industry. So that's actually really interesting.
Yep, yep. So yeah, I'm in that space, being versatile, just like I was as a
Exactly.
as a football player. So I just wanted to add that tidbit in, but
Oh,
also,
absolutely.
I'm jumping on my Twitch channel here in about 10 minutes to stream some Madden. So if you want to come watch me play
Woo.
some Madden, get some friends of mine, with some friends of mine, be my guest. It's Ahman Green TV and NIL TV Esports.
Hey, I used to be nasty Madden 21. So, hey, if you
Nice.
ever if you ever trying to run it, just let me know.
Man, thank you for this interview. Thank you for I love to talk about my story because I wasn't a big talker when I was playing. I let my actions do the talking, and even with what I'm doing after my career. Thank you for letting me share that time as well. Let people know, hey, I'm staying busy. I'm in a space that I'm comfortable in, and I'm helping create other great leaders out there, in different spaces in the business world and on football field as well, or I'll say the athletic arena as well, because I'm talking football, baseball, basketball, 7 on
Absolutely.
7. We got young ladies playing 7 on 7 football now who I'm coaching
Woo.
and helping out. So doing a lot of things, trying to help bring more leaders, good leaders, in the spaces that we need leaders in. So appreciate you, Jack, for having me on the show.
Perfect. Perfect. That's going to do it here. Episode 78 of the Playoff Push podcast. As always, thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and have a great rest of your day. A big thank you to Nithin Ramachandra from NR Media for making this interview possible.